chaiva narotamam devim saraswatam vyasam tato jaya mudirayet nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatam aham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. I'll just share the screen. Just give me a minute. No, I'll not be able to share. You have to make me the co-host. Rohini Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll make you the co-host.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, so the 14th chapter, that's the title of this chapter is The Story of King Vena. So we saw a little bit in the previous verses. We are looking at actually the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So in that, there are many personalities that come. So important personality was King Anga, and his son is King Vena. And after that, we will see it was Prithu Maharaj. So how all this came about, we will see. But yeah, for today, we'll be looking at verses 1 to 6. So verse number 1, Maitreya Vacha Bhrigvadhayaste Munayo Lokanam Kshemadarshinaha Goptarya Sati Vainarnam Pashyantaha Pashu Samyatam. So what does that mean? The translation. The translation, the great sage Maitreya continued, O great hero Vidura, the great sages headed by Bhrigu were always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. When they saw that in the absence of King Anga, there was no one to protect the interests of the people, they understood that without a ruler, the people would become independent and non-regulated. So that's the first verse. Now the second verse, here, like we generally do, each of you get an opportunity to recite the verse. So yeah, if we can just raise your hands. Yes, I see some hands. 1 second. Anita Mataji, then Vasudha Mataji, then Sudha Mataji, then Sridhar Prabhu, and Chandrika Sudevi Mataji. So you all can take turns one after another. So Anita Mataji, if you can just start with this verse. You can read the verse and also recite the verse and then the translation. These two we can do.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. Veeramataram ahuya sunitam brahmavadinaha prakriti asamatam venam abhyashinchan patim bhuvaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. The great sages then called for the Queen Mother Sunita, and with her permission they installed Vena on the throne as master of the world. All the ministers, however, disagreed with this. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So this is a discussion between Maitreya and Vidura, and we are just seeing what is happening. So Shloka 3, Vasudha Mataji, like right?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Shrutva nrupasa anagatam venam atyugra sasanam nililyurdasya va sadyaha sarpatrishta iva khavaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Translation. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. It was already known that Veena was very severe and cruel. Therefore, as soon as all the thieves and rogues in the state heard of his ascendance to the royal throne, they became very much afraid of him. Indeed, they hid themselves here and there as rats hide themselves from snakes. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So we'll move on to the fourth verse. Sudha Mataji, would you like to try?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Sa arudha nrupasthana unnadostha vibhutibihi avamene mahabhagan stapta sambhavita swataha. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. When the king ascended to the throne, he became all-powerful with 8 kinds of opulences. Consequently, he became too proud. By virtue of his false prestige, he considered himself to be greater than anyone. Thus, he began to insult great personalities. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much. So we'll move on to the next. Sridhar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dandot Pranam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dhanasvanamstu.
Evam madhanta utsikto niranguna iva dvipivaha paryudam mada asthaya kambayanna iva rodasi. Hare Krishna. Translation by Prabhupada ki Jai. When he became overly blind due to his opulence, King Vena mounted a chariot and, like an uncontrolled elephant, began to travel through the kingdom, causing the sky and earth to tremble wherever he went. Hare Krishna. Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. The last verse for today. Chandrika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranams.
Dhanasvanamstu.
न यष्टव्यं न दातव्यं न होतव्यं द्विजा क्वचित् इति न्यावाराय धर्मं भेरी घोषेण सर्वशः. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. All the twice born Brahmanas were forbidden henceforth to perform any sacrifice, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus King Vena sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you, devotees, for reading the verses and the translation. I know some of you have, others have also volunteered, but I think the shlokas are over. So, kindly excuse me for that. Just a second. Okay, so we are looking at the first verse, and then from there, then I try to cover each one, and then what is being told, what is the purport, and what is the essence, sum and essence of what Prabhupada is trying to say. So, like I said before, before we get started, Mangalacharan, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, I'm just requesting is the volume very low?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji, if
Hare
you could
Krishna.
increase it a little bit or come closer maybe to the mic.
Is this okay now? Hare Krishna. Is this all right or it's still low?
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhu, it's nice. We can hear Prabhu.
Okay. I think the volume was low. Sorry about that.
It's perfectly right, Prabhuji. Haribo.
Thank you. Okay. So, yeah, we are in the first verse of the 14th chapter, and the 14th chapter is all about the story of King Vena. So, King Vena, I think what is his unique quality? He was very kind,
Cruel.
cruel. Yeah,
Cruel, Prabhu.
he was a very cruel personality. So, we'll try to see what happened. Okay. So, Maitreya Uvacha, Hrigvadhayaste munayo lokanam kshemadharshinaha guptaryasati vainarnam pashyantah pashu samyatam. Which means the great sage Maitreya continued, "O great hero Vidura, the great sages headed by Bhrigu were always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. When they saw that in the absence of King Anga, there was no one to protect the interests of the people, they understood that without a ruler, the people would become independent and non-regulated." So here, Prabhupada in his purport is saying that the primary word or the key significant word is Kshema Darshinaha. So what does Kshema Darshinaha means? It is one who always aspire for the welfare. So there are personalities who are always aspiring for the welfare. Welfare of who? Welfare of people in general. So this is a very interesting thing that we need to be aware of when we're talking about welfare. Who are these personalities who are thinking of the welfare? It is the great sages and the rishis. Now, the sages and the rishis, they are supposed to have, like given up everything material, everything worldly. So, and they have just given that up completely, and they have nothing to do with any material dealings or any of these things, So they are, in fact, you see that they all move away from civilization, move away from people, move away from societies, and then they are actually staying in forests or in caves, that kind of lives they have been leading. But that is as far as their own personal, this thing is concerned, or for personally for them, they don't want anything like that. But when it comes to other people, they always have their welfare at heart. You can see that even in the modern day rishis. But only thing is, some of them don't have this proper understanding of what is welfare. So they think that welfare means to open hospitals and then to open educational institutes, etc., etc. So you have a lot of that coming up. I mean, we don't have anything against that. But then we have to understand that that is not the job of a yogi or a person who is a sage or who's trying to be a sage. So these personalities in the earlier days, they actually had the welfare. They also had the welfare in their hearts and minds, but they knew what was welfare. That is the difference that we should understand and appreciate. The difference in the welfare, I mean, the word itself, how they understood welfare is the final good that can happen to an individual. So that is the welfare that they are talking about. In fact, they are not talking about material welfare. They are talking about spiritual welfare. They are talking about how people in general can become liberated, or they can reach their swarupa or their original identity. And then anything, any action from their side which will help these people to progress towards their real identity or their real self, that is termed as welfare activity. So in fact, in Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna talks about what is that verse? Anybody knows where he talks about the welfare of people and he describes what is welfare?
Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, Natvam.
Yeah, he is Suhruda, so he is beyond a friend. Yeah, that is there. Then Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. So where the Lord is talking about, I think it is 9.22.
Ananyas
Ananyas
Chintayantam.
Chintayanto Mam Yejana Paryuprasate. Mataji, if you know the shloka, you can recite it. Sorry.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Ananyas Chintayanto ma ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Krishna is actually taking care of the Yogakshema of everybody. Now the sages also have the similar predisposition towards people in general. They also want the Yogakshema. They want that. And what is that Yogakshema? It is preserving what they have and giving what they lack. Prabhupada translates in the Bhagavad Gita verse where he says, the Lord protects what you have and he gives what you lack. So now, in people in general, what is it that they lack? They lack adhyatmika, spiritual knowledge.
Ignorant.
They are
Buddhi they
Yeah.
don't have.
So the sages are involved in ensuring that they give what they lack. And that is Yogakshema, or that is the Kshema Darshina that they have. In fact, this Kshema Darshina is there for all the sages across all times. Where else you find this particular thing of Loka Kalyan? I mean, the words could be many, but it all relates to one thing only. Loka Mangalam or Loka Kalyan or Kshema Darshina. So all of this, when it is applied to the society at large, then it is about spiritual progress. It is about helping them identify or realize their true individual self, not this body. So where else we find this? Anybody can give an example of where else in the Shrimad Bhagavatam we see this? Where else was there a gathering of all sages?
First chapter, Prabhuji, when all the sages ask questions for the welfare of the public.
When Bhishma Deva was passing away.
Yeah, Meenakshi Mataji, where is that? I mean, they are asking the question.
Naimisharanya.
Naimisharanya. Yeah, okay. The sages at Naimisharanya. So they again post this question, and they very clearly it is said that they were interested in the Loka Kalyan and then Loka Mangalam. So in the initial pages of the Bhagavatam itself, you find these references that come. So in this way, we can understand that even though they have renounced, why Sukadev Goswami himself? Because it was for the common good of not only the king, but also for all the people sitting and also for the coming generations. He agrees to sit and then recite the Shrimad Bhagavatam the way he had heard it from his father. Otherwise, he was not interested. What was the personality of Sukadev Goswami? He did not even stay in one place, that is what they say, right? And he had nothing to do with material this thing. So in fact, he was so detached that he didn't, he was not even cognizant of the fact of a man and a woman and that kind of a thing. He was so detached, he was so elevated, he was. But still, and he never used to stay in one place. But still, because it was for the common good of the people, he agrees to sit in one place for 7 full days, day and night, giving up sleep, because Parikshit Maharaj also gave up sleep, gave up eating and all of that. So he also continuously speaks the Shrimad Bhagavatam sitting in one place. And that is something that's mentioned in the Shrimad Bhagavatam, where it is told that a personality like him has to sit, means it's only because of 2 reasons. One is opportunity to talk about the Lord, and second one is it is for the welfare of all the others. So it is a preaching activity. So you can see that all the sages, all the rishis were always preachers in their heart of hearts, because they always wanted the good for the fellow human beings, even though they did not identify themselves like that, but still they knew. And why? For human beings, that is important, because that is the ultimate athato brahma jignasa. That is how the whole education starts. Human life is very, very, very special. And the speciality is because in this life, we have the ability, the intelligence, and the the intelligence to grasp spiritual aspects, to make this inquiry. Who am I? Where have I come from? Why am I here? Where should I be going? What is right? What is wrong? All of these inquiries which lead to spiritual aspect is possible in a human life. And so a human being is revered, or he is given that importance. So whenever they see a human being, they want to uplift that person, because if they don't, then there's a good chance that he might go off to animalistic life. And then animalistic life means more prolonged journeys of birth and death, and which means that he has actually regressed. It's like going back to primary school after coming to high school or PUC or whatever. So we don't want that for any child, right? So actually, you will go to even if you don't know the child, you'll go to any length to ensure that it doesn't happen, so that he is not unnecessarily penalized in any way. So this way, this quality of wishing well, where it's coming from the Lord. The sages are carrying it with them. Even today, modern day also, they carry it, but then the aspect of welfare is slightly misunderstood. And so they end up opening schools, colleges, hospitals, and so on and so forth, thinking that that will do them good. So this is one aspect that we are seeing. And Prabhupada is actually talking in detail about this particular aspect in the purport. And then we are also seeing how, like when the head of the state is not there, then how the Yogakshema is not happening. See, everybody is aligned to the Yogakshema in the way it was understood, in the way Krishna wanted us all to understand, right from the kings, right from the sages in the earlier days. So even the kings were trained to address to the spiritual needs of individuals. So, and to help the spiritual needs, if there was a need for any material fulfillment, that used to get fulfilled. So it was not just for only material fulfillment, and definitely not from the perspective that material fulfillment will lead to sense gratification. That was not how it was. Or okay, go ahead, gratify your senses, or you can unlimitedly keep gratifying your senses. So that was not the way in which they ruled. They knew that it was allowed, but there has to be a samyama, or there has to be a boundary, a framework within which certain things were allowed. And then, but then eventually they wanted the purification of the individuals, of all the human beings in a particular land. And that is how the king was trained to rule. And time to time, they used to give advice. Even in case if they find the king is deviating, then there is always this advice that used to come from the sages, from the guru, from the learned brahmanas. All of them, they were involved in that particular activity. So this was how the society was. So you had the intelligence class. The intelligence is coming from the knowledge of Vedas. So that link, generally people don't talk about, and they say intelligent class. But then where are they getting their intelligence from? Their intelligence is spiritual intelligence. They're getting it from the Vedas. And from there, then they pass it on to the king, so that the king, having the authority, will be able to enforce it or guide the society. That is the Shudras and the Vaishyas and the other people. So all of them. So in this way, there is a need for this structure. And what is the structure that we are talking about? It is the 4 Varnas. And that Varnas are again created by the Lord. So our job is to say everything is done and created and put in place. It's just our job to maintain it. But maintaining it is so difficult. That is why we end up messing it up. And it got so messed up that when you talk about the Varnas and the Ashramas, then immediately people take offense, or they say, oh, no, that is very regressive and all that. So because we it was given to us in the purest form, but then we contaminated it. We made it, so impure that the very word becomes very repulsive in the current day scenario. And the whole system is broken. The Varnashrama system itself is broken. because meaning people didn't want it because they thought that's very regressive. So because they've been misled. Anyway, the point that we'll stick to is that the kings were guided in that way. And now what happens in this context? After King Anga, actually King Anga leaves the home and then he suddenly disappears one fine day because he realizes that the only son that he had, which he got after sacrifices, after performing yagna, because the demigods were not obliging, then he offers to Lord Vishnu, and then a being comes from the fire and then offers a pot of sweet milk or something like that. And then that is then given to his wife, and then they beget a child, and that child is Vena, but then he turns out to be a very cruel personality, and that is greatly disappoints King Anga. And then he leaves his, one fine day, suddenly he decides to leave and then go. And then suddenly they realize that the king is not there. They are searching for the king, and then they don't find. So in the process, some time has elapsed. And then they realize that the administration of the kingdom is suffering because of that, because there is no king. And so to ensure that the administration is taken care, they decide to install the Vena, the prince Vena, as the king. And then for that, then they are taking the permission of the mother, that is Sunita. So this is how we are seeing the story progress. Now, what is happening? Actually, with the permission of Sunita, the king, the son is installed. That is, Vena is made the king, or he is made to ascend the throne. Even though many ministers had disagreed, but still the learned sages decide to, headed by Bhrigu Muni, they decide to go ahead and have a king, because they realize that no king is not a very good situation. At least a king is there, then many things will be taken care. So in that way, even though they knew the character of Vena, they had to install or put him as on the throne, and thereby giving him a chance to correct himself. Sometimes, they do that, right? Let's give him some responsibility. Maybe he will correct himself. That kind of a expectation is there generally. So maybe if he corrects himself, then everything will be all right. Anyway, he is qualified to ascend the throne because he is the son of the earlier king. So in this way, he was made to ascend the throne. But what happens? The result was not as they had expected. So even though it was already known that Vena was severe and cruel, but then something good happened there also. There is some silver lining. What happened? All the thieves and the rogues in the state, when they heard of his ascendance to the royal throne, they became afraid, and then they hid themselves. Means they were not very open. They were not very open in committing the crimes and all of that, because they know that they will be severely punished, because he's a very cruel king. So king means they will expect some mercy, but this person is so merciless. So then where can I get? And even if I get caught, then that's the end of me. So that's how they were viewing it. And so they all hid themselves like rats. Like how the rats hide from snakes. Snakes, of course, is bad. But the good thing is, when there is a snake, that means then you can be assured that there are no rats. So in that way, here also, even though Vena is not a good king, but then it drove all the thieves and the rogues of the day into their shell. So at least some protection happened, or some good happened for the citizens. So there were no robbery and other things. But then what happened? This king himself was not very good. So he was a very cruel person. So he did something very, very drastic and very, very abominable, which is not supposed to be done. So because he was made the king, and he had the power now. Cruel mind and then the power. So that's not a very good combination. The change of heart did not happen, but then it's like adding fuel to fire. The fire that was raging within him was of cruelty. And then by becoming a king, then it was like some fuel got added. So it started burning even more. The fire of cruelty within him was burning even more. So he then became uncontrollable. he thought that I rule everybody and I can do whatever I want. And so he began to insult great personalities. And then because of his false ego, he thought I am the greatest. So he was completely taken over by the false ego. And he had a cruel disposition. So it was a very dangerous combination. Now, becoming a king, Prabhupada says, you have the power. And then Prabhupada is explaining a little bit on how is this power made available. So he talks about the Ashta that means the 8 opulences that are there. So a king is supposed to possess all these 8 opulences. How do we understand that? We know that Ashta Vibhuti or the Ashta Siddhi, which is talking about the 8 opulences, which are like Prapti Siddhi you get if you are a king. Do you agree to that? Prapti Siddhi for a yogi is when he wishes for something, then it comes to him, it manifests. So in the same way, the king, all he has to do is he has to just speak, or he has to speak his mind, then that thing will manifest because he has the power. That means there are people below who will move heaven and earth for him to get it and then ensure that it is brought to him. Like he wants mango or he wants anything, whatever is there, it will come to him in no time because there are ministers, there are so many people working for him. So like this, the opulences are material in nature, and then he is everywhere. He can be everywhere because information he will get, he will know what is happening because he has people who will come and then tell him. So like this, you can draw a parallel. And that's what is being highlighted here, where all the 8 opulences are there for the king. He's supposed to possess all of this, not by dint of his yoga. It's not that yogi, but then because of his position, he can get the same results as a person who will get the Ashtasiddhi, something like that. Okay. So this is what is being discussed here, and Prabhupada makes this point. So there is power, and then there is also this evil mind or the cruel mind. It's not a very good combination. So what happens? He rides the chariot and then creating havoc or terror, not only just in the minds of the thieves, but in the minds of the general public also. So people who are God-fearing, who are obeying, even they also are fearful because they wonder anything can happen to them. And then he was so blinded that he begins to make the changes to the laws or the rules that are there, which are governing the society. That's very dangerous. And how did he choose? What is the change that he made? He went after the twice born, the Brahmanas, because he knew they were powerful. So then he wanted to eliminate them. They made me the king, but now I want to eliminate them. That's the mentality of a cruel person. There is no gratitude, or there is no this thing. I mean, even though I'm not worthy of the throne, my father went away because he was disappointed in me. All those kind of repentance are not there in his heart, because his heart is full of cruelty. So what does he do? His thinking is different. So he just wants the Brahmanas to be further marginalized or diminished, or their power has to move. So he stopped, or he forbidden them from performing sacrifices, and then they were not allowed to give any charity. They were not allowed to do any offering. That means they were not allowed to do any yajna. So which is the other king where we saw he did all this? Who can say that? You all know that personality who stopped all of this the moment he became the Lord of the universe.
Hiranyakashipu.
Yeah, Hiranyakashipu. So this is a Rakshasa Pravritti. It's the mentality or a predisposition of a Asura, Asuri Bhava. So where they immediately they want to stop all ritualistic things. Now, even in the modern day, we are on the edge. So many such rules and regulations or such directives come, or where they try to undermine the position of ritualistic activities. Now, some of us, we don't know the importance of ritualistic activities. So we think, oh, that is only ritualistic, so that is all right. But in my mind, in my heart, yeah, I know spiritualism is different from that. So that is okay. So we try to justify this and then try to see it differently, which may not be the right thing to do. Why? Because I was just listening to a lecture, and in that, they make this reference to a particular verse in Bhagavad Gita, which draws some light towards how we should conclude this. I'll come to that. But then, before we get there, what is happening? Now, he has stopped all the ritualistic thing. And then Prabhupada also in the purport is saying that all the atheistic governments all over the world, even today, the present day, they are involved in this kind of activity that was done by Vena or by Hiranyakashipu earlier. So where he stopped all the schooling, he changed the syllabus. He didn't make it God-centric. He just said you will learn all the sciences, but then without the Lord. And that is what is happening even now. They've removed the aspect of Lord, but they want to learn math, physics, science, biology, everything. Biology without the Lord. So funny it is. Birth, death, all of that you will discuss, disease and all that, but without the Lord. And then physics without the Lord. So how the day and night happening, all of that, creation, everything you try to see, understand, but then without the Lord. So of course it will all be not complete, it will not be purna, it will not be full understanding. So in this way, the modern day, there is always this anxiety is more because of that. You'll naturally see there is a lot of anxiety because we are not God-centric. Generally, we are I-centric. And some of them, whatever the society believes as progress, they think a person from I-centric, if he becomes family-centric, he has become very responsible. But still he is family-centric. And then somebody who's gone beyond that and then becomes society-centric, oh, he is a philanthropical person, though he is praised like anything. But still his society-centric will be based on where he belongs to, that his own society, where he belongs to, the language he speaks or the land he is born, that kind of thing. So we realize that it's not full, it is not Purnam, even though you are moving towards the perfectional stage, but still it is not Purnam, it is not complete. There is still gaps. And as long as these gaps are there, the solutions will not be effective. That is the conclusion of the Vedas. And that is why the people or the sages of Naimisharanya, they know that it becomes Purnam only when God is there, or when the aspect of the Supreme Personality is involved, then it becomes Purnam. So anything to do with God or with the Supreme Lord, with Krishna, then immediately they give out their heart and soul for that. Because they realize that that is needed not only for me, but also for everybody. And without that, any activity I do, it is going to be a waste of time. Shama evahi kevalam, without the Lord, or with any activity that you do. Because why it is a waste of time? Because then it is no more a bhakti, means a spiritual activity or an activity with devotion. Then it becomes, then we will acquire karma for that. And so we become more and more bound to birth and death. So we are just assuring that we have more birth. We might do good things or we might do bad things, but still we are ensuring that we are extending the number of births that we have to take, which is not the right thing. So that is why it is waste of time. So anything to do with Lord, then it becomes a spiritual activity. Even if there is some consciousness is not so great or clear, still the Lord by his mercy clears it up. That's the first mercy that he gives. So he makes it purer for us. So even though we go with Mishra Bhakti we are doing, but then Mishra Bhakti is still recommended because the mercy begins to flow even in Mishra Bhakti, and then the purification happens so that we move towards doing Bhakti in a very pure form. What do you mean by pure Bhakti? It means not having any expectations, materialistic expectations, ahaituki and apratihata, no motivation for doing that particular activity, just other than to please the Lord. No other material hankering or not even liberation. I'm doing this so that I'll get liberation, not even that. And then it is apratihata, it is continuous, it is not halted. Okay, Sunday I did. After that 1 week I take a break. No, it is continuous. Every day means every day. So that is, and because that everyday aspect becomes very important, because the Lord becomes pleased with our effort that we put and the austerities that we take to make it continuous, day in and day out. Then he becomes very pleased. And he says that you're not having any expectation, at the same time you're doing it continuously. So which is then moving towards the purer form. Or sometimes we may not be able to do that, but the very fact that we are following a pure devotee makes us pure, or our devotional activity becomes pure because we are trying to follow a pure devotee. In this case, our entire parampara, all our gurus, Prabhupada, everybody, even current gurus, and Srila Prabhupada, and then all the way up to Brahma. So they're all very pure, and then their instructions, Narada Muni, all of them, So their instructions we are trying to adhere to. So we become pure. So these are some of the things that are given. I might be impure, but then I'm following a pure devotee. So at least my effort is there to make it pure. So in this way, there is a lot of encouragement that is given in the pages of Shrimad Bhagavatam, in the lectures of Srila Prabhupada, where there is this where they are telling us that we just follow a pure devotee, then our actions become pure, even though our hearts and our minds may not be that pure. So this way, there's so much of assurance that is given. So that is how merciful the movement is. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. That is how merciful ISKCON is. And we need to understand, appreciate, and acknowledge this fact so that we become grateful. So that we become grateful. Are you able to hear me? I was getting a call. I just disconnected. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
Prabhuji, there was a
Prabhu,
break.
can hear.
okay. So we become very grateful. So this aspect of gratefulness is very, very important. Then our ego is down. We are always indebted to the parampara, indebted to the Supreme Lord, and everybody connected to that, to the Lord. So we're indebted. So we can never repay that debt. That's what they say. No? Guru, whatever the Guru has done to us can never be repaid. Not only in this birth, birth after birth, whatever you do, you cannot repay it. And that is why that Guru following, the only way you can please the Guru is by following the instruction. You can't repay what he has done to us. So that indebtedness has to happen. Even if we become the best of the devotee, it doesn't mean that we have repaid. It only means that I'm still falling short. Like they say, no, Balaji has taken a loan which is never repayable from Kubera. So how much ever money goes on, it's all going to Kubera also. It is not sufficient. So like that, whatever we do, how much ever we do, it is not sufficient to repay the debt of the Guru. And that's the bhava or the feeling that we need to have. And that will only come with proper knowledge. The proper knowledge is when we read, when we follow a pure devotee, which is Srila Prabhupada. When we read his books, we try to understand. And then we hear lectures on them. And then we realize that, okay, this is my position. So in this way, we realign ourselves every day, every time, because our conditioning is so strong that we tend to go to the materialistic side very quickly. We finish this call, we close everything, we step out, and then immediately our material feelings or our material conditioning becomes active. And then we try to handle material things or the outside world in a materialistic way. So again, we'll have to again do that. Like it is like having a bath is no guarantee that we'll not become dirty. The moment you finish your bath, then from that time onwards, then dirt is getting to accumulate in the body, right? So but then we do certain things so that we try to keep ourselves clean. So that then eventually then we, after some hours, then again we have a bath, so we become clean. Nobody says I'll not have a bath because anyway I'll become dirty. So that's not the point. So in the same way, we try to do Adhyatmika. Even though we know we are conditioned, we'll go there, but still we try to do that because we try to purify the mind. And then slowly, then it has an effect, a prolonged effect on us. So now, these rituals are very, very important. Krishna is saying in the 3rd chapter, and that's what I was saying earlier. He says that, my dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human cycle, in human life, the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. Now, that is dharma, artha, kama. So as long as you're doing your dharma, and then you get some benefit, and then you're doing, which is money, and then you satisfy your senses, but within the framework of dharma, then you are safe. You are at least not accumulating sins. And if you're not accumulating sins, that means that at least you will not fall down lower. It is like you have reached a ledge, you're sitting on that ledge, at least you will not fall down or slide down. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you're safe there. You need to climb further. Until you get to the top, It is no guarantee. Anything can happen. With just a small ledge there, when it's a steep rock, so it's downhill otherwise. But then you found a ledge, so something like that. So in this way, in the third chapter, 16th shloka, I'll just read that shloka 1 minute. Sorry. 3.16. Evam pravartitham chakram nanuvarthayati haya aghayor indriya ramo mogham bharta sajivati. So it's what it means. It means, my dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice just established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of senses, such a person lives in vain. So, the effort of the leaders, the effort of the sages is always to induce them to live within a regulated life. That is why you will see all instructions are such that they decry or they don't want somebody to live a life which is unrestricted or which is not in tune with the Shastras or the Vedas, because that becomes a sinful life. Now, what is King Vena doing with the kettle drum sounding? He is telling, no more rituals, no more yagnas, no more this thing. You just live your life, that's all. And then you just obey me or listen to me, that kind of a thing. So thereby you're moving those people away forcefully from rituals. That's what Hiranyakashipu also did. And thereby not only the Brahmanas are affected, but then the whole society gets affected. All the Varnas get affected. All the ashramas get affected. And then they accumulate sins. So their sins, anyway, sins are getting added, but now the sins are getting added at a faster rate. So it becomes more. It is like interest on interest kind of a thing, or whatever, however you want to call it. So in this way, it's not a good situation, because confirmed you are making yourself or you're paying the way for lower births. Because human being, next birth, definitely not a human being, because it's so sinful. So naturally you become animalistic. You start going down and down and down. So this is what is happening even here now in the modern day. So from this shloka we can understand how this is 3.16, where Krishna is saying that one, if he does not follow in the human's life the cycle of sacrifice as established by the Vedas, then he is certainly leading a sinful life, because anyway actions he has to do, and for that actions then there are reactions, and those reactions are not favorable because you have not followed the Shastra. Very simple. So this is where we should not disturb somebody, even if there is some homa that is being done or yajna is happening, even though it has many minus points in it, or the aim of that is to get some material things. We should at least appreciate the fact that they are at least taking to this Shastric way, even though they want some material cravings are there, but then they want to fulfill it through the Shastric way, which is good, which is better. I mean, no, it may not be the best, of course, but then at least it is better than not following the Shastras like that. Like in this example we saw, no king, better than no king is to have a king even though he is not qualified. So that something is taken here. Then later on, that not a good king, then they replaced. That we will see later on, what they did. So I'll not get into that. But then this is all in stages, step by step, because it was better. They realized that to leave the kingdom without a king was not good. So immediately they, based on the situation at hand, they immediately got him installed as a king. And then later on, then they realized there is no, this thing, we need to become even better than this. So then they removed him, and then they had a good king. So this only talks about the mind of the sages, headed by Bhrigu in this case, where they want Loka Kalyan. They want to have a situation which is better than what it was now. So like they say now, our today should be better than yesterday, which means actually there's another important thing that comes up. You're accepting the situation that is there and trying to take the best option that is available, which means that accepting the situation means surrender, which means that surrender to the Lord, because the situation that we are in is because of the sanction of the Lord. So, okay, this is what the Lord has given me. Now let me make whatever is best possible out of this. And then move one step, then the next, like that, So this way, there are many things that come out, but everything centering around aligning ourselves to the Lord. everything is centering around being humble, being aware of who I am, who the Lord is, being aware of how I'm insignificant, and how the mercy is so great. So it all comes back to that same thing, because day in and day out, every time we talk, we hear these conclusions only in all types of lectures. Be it the characters might be different, the personalities might be different, but the message is the same every time. And those messages we need to keep on imbibing, because we are so conditioned. It's like straightening the dog's tail. No, the moment you let go, then again it curls up. So they keep on doing anyway. So like that. But then here it can be straightened because the Lord's mercy is there. So that was a physical activity. You can't straighten the dog's tail, they say. But here, our conditioning can be corrected, even though we are so conditioned, when we have the mercy of the Lord. So it becomes straight in one way, because the Lord is involved. So like this, it's not my effort, but it is the mercy of the Lord. So that itself is a proper understanding. And then it helps us to accept things. It helps us in taking away the anxiety that is there. It helps us in ensuring that we don't make further mess out of the whole thing by reacting to it, by becoming angry or trying to do something which is not there in the Shastra or something like that, and then take your own decisions, using our own logic and intelligence, and then try to do something. Then we realize that is takes us down more. So we were better off before. Any move you make, it makes us go to a position which is worse than where I am now, if we use our intelligence. But of course, if that intelligence is guided by Shastra, then that is not the case. So like this, we can understand from this particular lesson. Very important lesson, actually. Sometimes we might ask, how is it that they installed a person who was not worthless? That means they believed in, what is that? Ascending the throne, the right is with the prince only. So however bad he is, you still put him there. No, later on they removed him also. So like this, he was given a chance, you can say, because they thought, okay, he has all the qualification, he's in the right place, but then he is cruel. So maybe some small correction is needed. So let's put him there. Maybe he will turn on a new leaf, then he'll be a changed person, but that didn't happen. So then they didn't side him anymore. They got him removed. How they got him removed, we'll see further. Okay. So these are the things that we are seeing as of the 6 or the 7 shlokas that we saw today. So the main thing, if I have to summarize, it's all about Loka Kalyan or Shema Darshina. That's the word that is used here. So we saw about how the sages are always having that mentality. And then we also saw how no king to bad king, though it is not desirable, but then they had to do that. And it had some benefits. So we saw a little bit in detail about that. I mean, a little bit of that, like how the thieves and all became, they went and hid themselves because there was a king who was very strict. And then later on, we saw how because of the ego, because of not being guided properly, not allowing himself to be guided properly, his ego became even greater. And then even though he had all the opulences with him, but then he used it to not to the advantage of the people, but then to his own, furthering his own sense enjoyment, which is not a correct thing for a king to do. And so that brought about more harm for him because he gave a direction where he wanted to stop all the ritualistic activities. So on that count, we saw how ritualistic activities are very important, especially when it is done within the framework of the Shastras. It may not be devotional service, like a yajna for good rains. It may not be directly related to a devotional activity, but then there is surrender there. There is acceptance of the higher authority. There is an acceptance of the superior beings, and then the need for us to please them so that then we get what we want, because we realize they are the ones who are providing all this. Otherwise, we think, oh, it is available, I can take it. But then when we do yajnas, it means what? It means that we realize that nothing belongs to me. When they sanction it, then I get it. It's like that. So like a ration card. If you have a ration card, at least in the olden days, it means that you have some access to certain things, especially when things are scarce, not available. At least okay, something I will get there. So it's like that, So the fact that I'm doing an yajna, which means that I'm I know I don't own them, but then I have a certain portion that will come to me. So this way, this aspect of yajna or Prabhupada highlights that and then says how it is important. And then how not doing it, we saw in the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 16th shloka, when you don't do it, then you lead a life of sin. So as leaders of a community or a person who's heading a leader, political leader, or head of a family, how it is important for us to ensure that these things are not trivialized or not ignored or not stopped, but then continue to do that, because at least thereby we're not doing sin. This is for the common good of the people. So in this way, we saw many finer points here. We also saw Yoga Kshema. Yeah, I think we discussed that. So these are some of the main points that came out, which I just shared with you all. I'll stop here. Almost time. Yeah, 2 minutes we have. So if there are any comments or questions, then go ahead. Otherwise, we can conclude for today. Hare Krishna, Dandas Pranams. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dandat Pranams. Mataji's or Prabhuji's, anybody has any doubt? Please, questions, please raise your hand and ask Mataji. Hare Krishna, there are no questions, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Shall we end with the prayers, Prabhuji, then?
Yeah, we can conclude. We can conclude today's session with Vaishnava Pranams. Vancha
Kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Ananta Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grandaraj Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna, Prabhu Dandat Pranam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandat Pranam. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Shall I end the session, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna, Dandat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna.
Thank you all Matajis and